It's kind of both true and a myth that INFJs are good listeners. I know this is a provocative statement that challenges a lot of our preconceived notions, but hopefully I can argue for this kind of dual view. INFJs are good listeners on the condition that what you're saying fulfills two basic conditions. Often we are focused on just one, but there's really two. And they will be less than good listeners if the two conditions are not fulfilled. If one of the two conditions is fulfilled, they can certainly give the impression of being good listeners. If neither of the conditions are fulfilled, they might not even manage to even maintain or sustain the illusion that they are good listeners. So if that happens to you, that does not mean that you're not an INFJ, okay? So the ideal conditions to fulfill for an INFJ to listen to you really with a lot of stamina and resilience. They can listen then to you for a long time, that's true. Much more than the average person. That's the true anti-dominant power of listening. But it doesn't come at no price. Like there are, again, like I said, two ideal conditions. Number one, that's what's the substance of what you say is of interest to them. In which case, you need to get to know them a little bit. Sometimes you might not get the chance to get to know them unless what you've said in the first place interested them. So it can be a bit of a game of chance, okay? But usually if you're a deep thinker and you have deep interests, it is more likely than not that you will have substance that interests them. So that's the content aspect. And that's often talked about. But what's not talked about nearly as much is the form aspect and the structure aspect. NI is a soft, flowy, oceanic, and divergent, convergent type of rambling function. It takes its time, it meanders, it comes back, it meanders, it comes back, it drifts away, it drifts back. It's like water. And I really insist on that image, because that image is not just an image, it's a true incarnation of what NI is like in a lot of ways. And also an expression of the internal world of the INFJ. So, if you like, the fact that a person does not have a lot of NI in them or a lot of PI in them, so NI or SI, can make it sometimes difficult for an INFJ to follow them in terms of structure. And that's because what tends to happen with high extroverted perception and high introverted judgment, particularly these two, so like, strong, say, NETI or TINE, but not much introverted perception. Strong NEFI, but not much introverted perception. Strong FISE and not much introverted perception. And so on and so forth. That tends to create what I like to call a kind of stop-start articulation, where like the extra perception gets excited and says something, and then there's like a stop because they're looking for new stimulation, or the introverted judgment kicks in and sort of tries to internally check that what's been said is correct, or what's about to be said is adequate to what the person wants to say. So there's the beginning of a flow and then it stops, and the beginning of a flow and then it stops. It creates this kind of staccato, kind of almost like jagged landscape to the articulation. Stop, start, stop, start. That's stressful to an NI-dominant, including an INFJ then, if that's your only mode of communicating. It's something that I've really noticed. It will be even noticed in text, but it will be even more noticeable in person, because NI is the opposite. NI does not stop start. It meanders. It's like it's a movement of sort of low but long waves. It's the ocean. So the sort of like peaks and then valleys and peaks and valleys, roller coaster style articulation. Nothing to do with content here, nothing to do with substance, pure like what is the structure, the form of how you talk and the way you talk. How do you present the content matters. It can be exhausting to an NI dominant to follow you in that way, and it might distract them. Now, if you have the content but not that, okay, content but not form, or if you have the form but not the content, which is more rare. It's more rare to have the form but not the content, in fact. Because usually if you have the form, it means you have PI, and if you have PI, it usually means that you have the content as well, because there's a link between PI and the kinds of stuff you're interested in, especially if your PI is NI. Might happen a bit less if you're SI. Nevertheless, an INFJ will still be decent at giving the impression that they're listening to you, and they might not feel the need to interrupt you or put an end to the conversation. They might look more stressed if what's the condition that's not fulfilled is the form, because again, the stop-start articulation can stress them in a visible, palpable, physical way. They might want to put an end to it eventually. If they love your form but not your content, they might be very good at basically not listening to a word you're saying while looking at you intently. In fact, they're just giving you a 1,000-yard stare that seems to be staring into your soul, but they're staring at the horizon behind you. Now, if you fulfill neither of those conditions, you're probably not going to have a very satisfying experience with the INFJ, and the INFJ is not going to have a satisfying experience with you. And provided that, you know, they're not overly polite, like really, really compliant, say, they probably will seek to put an end to the conversation and might even give you evidence that they were not really enjoying it during. And if you were to test them, you'd realize that they were not listening that closely. Okay? So that's for the little clarification. INFJs, good listeners, amazing listeners, but you still need to fulfill 2 conditions. Let me know in the comments what you thought, guys. Give me a like if you enjoyed the video as usual, and don't forget that I have published 2 books on this beautiful type called the INFJ. The latest one being the Infinite Soul, INFJ Life in the Modern World, which looks at how INFJs can find meaning, purpose, value, and rich lives in a world they often see as hostile, and they have reason to see it as hostile. So if you're interested in this book, check the first link below. It's helped a lot of people. Check the reviews. They might make you want to discover the book as well as this one, the Ecstatic Soul, the first book in the Soul series, a new look at the INFJ personality. And this is basically the deepest look at the INFJ mind, what's it like to have an INFJ mind, to think like an INFJ, to be an INFJ. If you're interested, check the link below in the description box, guys. And as usual, I could not do this work without you, so please consider supporting me on Patreon. The link to my Patreon is below. If you become a supporter, you will have access to some really cool perks, like access to our Discord server, where you can interact with me and the others pretty much on an everyday basis, but also bonus video content, exclusive videos for patrons every 2-3 weeks, where I go in depth about a topic of your choosing. So if that sounds good, see you there, guys. Anyway, talk to you soon. Take care of yourselves.